Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have just an outstanding show coming right up. Our first guest is here today to talk to us about her new book, Sacred Signs and Symbols. Now, Sherrie Dillard's been psychic since she was a child, and she's a professional psychic medium and medical intuitive, and she's been doing that for over 25 years. So she's the author of many books, including Discover Your Psychic Type, You Are a Medium, and then a bunch of others, so you have to check those out. But she's here today to talk to us about her new book, Sacred Signs and Symbols. So let's welcome to the show, Sherrie.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you so much for inviting me here today.
I'm so glad you're spending this time here with us today. I mean, this book is such a powerhouse, and it was so much fun to read it and dive into it, and it just was easy to pick up and kind of get into, sacred signs and symbols.
Yeah, great. I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. It was fun writing it. It felt that way writing it. It felt kind of like a book that wanted to be written in that way. It all flowed.
Well, and before we get into the book a little bit, I just have to ask, because it's got such great information. Did it take a period of time to develop this? Because each section is each chapter will cover things like roads or vehicles and different things like that. And we'll kind of dive into a little bit, but I'm just curious, how did that even come into being?
It really came into being through my morning walks. Every morning, very early in the morning, I like to get up and walk, and it kind of just evolved through what I started to do, just kind of without thinking about it, which was I'd have something on my mind. At the time, my mind is clear, and I kind of ask for intuitive advice, and I'm more open early in the morning, especially while walking. And I noticed I'd have something on my mind and something would appear or something would happen. And I thought, wow, that seems like the answer. That seems to be a sign or a message that I would intuitively understand what that meant. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And so I started to do it purposely more. I started to, especially if there was something going on in my life, because as you know, most of us know that even when we're highly intuitive, when we have something personal in our lives, it's hard to feel that we're completely, able to receive non-biased, neutral guidance, because our emotions, our thoughts, our desires, expectations, all of that can get in the way. And so I started to look for signs as a way to verify what I intuitively felt, and also to sometimes trigger more awareness in that way. And so I purposely started doing that, and I had wanted to, for a long time, I had also wanted to write and work with and develop some kind of an oracle system, that, because I love all of, the cards and runes, I Ching. There's all kinds of ways that we've developed throughout time to receive guidance, and I thought that would be so much fun and interesting to be able to, kind of understand something at that level. And then it all kind of just came together for me, because that was one of my questions I started doing was, well, what kind of oracle system? And I just, it was funny when I look back at it in retrospect, because I realized that I kept getting all these signs. And then I finally was struck with, well, actually, that's the message, is the signs. The oracle system is the signs. And once I got that, and because I've been doing this for years, I mean, this has been a practice of mine for a long time. I kind of had a lot of that guidance and, that backlog of so much discerning signs through my daily walks and then, of course, my guides helped me, too, with some of the other signs that I put in the glossary. But I guess I would say the book was written fairly quickly, but the practice of this was years in the making.
I can see where that would be, just, as you're getting the signs and, intuiting where, the message that comes with it, and just kind of getting that confirmation each time. I'm sure it was something that took a while. I was just so curious how that came to be, because these are just fabulous. It's just fabulous information. And so for our listeners that might be new to sacred signs and symbols, why don't you take just a little bit of time and explain what that all is?
Okay, that's a great question. The Sacred Signs and Symbols, the book is about, it begins with describing, who's sending us messages, what do they look like, the different types of messages too. Some signs and messages we get in synchronicities are guidance. Sometimes we receive a sign from a loved one that's more of a sign of comfort or I'm present. And from there I go into how to better discern signs. There's a lot of kind of notes on what to look for and what's going on in your life, and questions you can ask yourself to better discern and interpret signs and messages. And then we move into more invoking messages. Although, it's kind of this wonderful feeling I feel when I'm given a spontaneous message and I get it. It can bring us just so much of a sense of being seen and known and guided. It's such a wonderful feeling. But we can also invoke signs. And a lot of the book is devoted to what I call the living oracle, which is a system that I came up with that has, I think it's 6 different ways, techniques, kind of, a formula, we could say, of different ways to invoke signs for different reasons or different purposes, or sometimes depending on where you are too. And then from there, kind of using those different formulas for invoking signs, or different ways to do it might be a better way to say it. And then moving into more interpreting those signs. And a fair amount of the book is the glossary, which I wanted to emphasize in the glossary, although I do have natural signs like birds and insects and animals and the skies and vegetation, I wanted to include more urban signs. I felt very strongly about that, because I was at the time for, the past many years been living in an urban area. And, I think, in days past, signs were such an important part of our collective cultures, individually, but also, we made decisions, big decisions culturally based on nature, signs in nature and phenomena in that way. Now we're not always as closely connected to nature in that way. And if you're living in an urban area, more city, it might, your connection with nature might be minimal. So I wanted to include signs that we don't necessarily think of as signs. Things like roads or road names, or numbers on buildings, the different kinds of buildings. A florist shop has a different message than a bank, that kind of thing. And cars are a big one, different types of vehicles, commercial vehicles, things that you might just randomly come across in an urban area, like a construction site, or even people arguing, or people holding hands. Those all can be signs when and the key to this is when you're invoking signs and using, and one of the ways that I have that you can invoke signs I call a walkabout. And this is just one of the many ones, but a walkabout is basically just going outside and walking and not having a destination, but going with the intent of invoking signs for a specific question, or you can just want to see what comes your way too. And it's like if you're doing the walkabout and you're just kind of randomly walking around, seeing where you feel led, you'll encounter a lot of different opportunities to receive messages, because anything really can, everything can give us a message. It doesn't have to necessarily be the more traditional nature signs, although those are wonderful and I use them myself. But I just want to open that up to a broader understanding where no matter where you are, basically, the universe can be speaking to you.
Well, and I like how you touch on the fact that we can actually invoke signs. I think a lot of times people get in the habit of just looking for the signs that present themselves, which is great to do, but not really thinking that we have connection or a piece that can be involved in that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It is. It's nice to look, and it's really great when one spontaneously comes when you're not looking. Mm-hmm. But it becomes more of a dialogue with the universe when you invoke them. It becomes a way to communicate more, whether that's a loved one on spirit. Because I do a lot of medium work. A lot of my clients want to know how to communicate with their loved ones better, or when are they close? How do I know when they're close? Yeah. And it's a way that you can, and one of the systems I have in the book for invoking signs has to do with specifically getting what I call a sign signature from a loved one. And that's a sign that will surface in some form that your loved one is letting you know they're close. And so when you do that, it becomes a way to communicate better, whether that's with loved ones, or you can do it with angels or, higher spirit guides, or with just the universe in general, just divine presence. And, we collectively really like oracle cards, which I do too. I love them. Mm-hmm. And this is I wanted to make this similar in the way that obviously we are the oracle. That's why I call it the living oracle, that we are the center of the oracle, and we can, you pick a card to get a certain message. I wanted to help people to realize that you can, wherever you are, invoke that and kind of train yourself more to see that symbolically what comes your way and receive guidance in that form also.
So what are some ways, because I know a lot of times when we do get messages, sometimes people just kind of throw obstacles up that kind of are not allowing them to get the full message. What are some ways that people do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think that, like all intuition and all forms of receiving non-physical guidance or non-thought out, ego conscious-centered guidance, it always, all systems, however you work with energy, it all requires that leap of faith and trust. Mm-hmm. And the awareness that, a lot of times what happens is people will notice a sign and they'll completely understand it and get it. I've had clients do this so many times where they'll tell me, I saw this dove and I knew that, my mother was close, or whoever it was, and I knew what she was saying because I was going through this and I knew it was a sign. And they're so sure about it and it feels so right. And then later that day or the next day, they'll completely doubt it, where once it was so absolutely, when the conscious mind, when that chattering ego self recognizes that it's not what we're listening to, wait a minute here, I'm in charge of defining reality, it kind of pulls us into that place of doubt. And there's no way to eradicate that or to completely, snuff it out. But part of it is exercising that spirit muscle we all have within us that recognizes that we have received energy, something from whoever or the universe, whatever it may be, and that's as valid as the thinking mind. We tend to not give that a lot of weight, but one of the ways to do that too is to journal it too, and to pay attention to. One of the things I tell people to do, and I talk about this in the book, is when you receive a sign spontaneously, or if you're out there looking for one and one surfaces, ask yourself what's going on in your life. Are you confused about something? Do you need to make a decision? Are you worried? Or, or maybe you're celebrating something. Maybe you've had an achievement, or there's a goal you have or an idea that you don't know whether to pursue or not. But to look at what's happening in your life and then bring that sign into that in the way of, well, what might this sign be saying to me? And one of the ways that helps us to become stronger in trusting this is to kind of document that, write that down, and then go back to it, maybe not the next day, but give it some space and time. And what happens is you'll eventually begin to see a pattern where there is verifiable evidence that you could trust signs. Some people need that. Some people need that kind of evidence that says, yeah, actually that sign came in, and when I was going through this, and then whatever it was I was going through, it turned out in such a way, or I trusted the sign and went forward with it and it worked out great. However that evolved over a little span of time can kind of give us a little bit of that evidence that we're seeking that can help us to, just take that leap and trust just a little bit more.
Well, and I think you start to develop this relationship with the signs that you're getting, and so you can kind of, like how you're saying, kind of trust what it is that you're seeing. So if a past mother you see a butterfly every time you think of her and it shows up, it kind of helps with that confirmation.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah.
So, and this kind of takes me to my next question, because we've kind of gone over some examples of the signs, because there's automobiles, and what are some of the other examples that you have? We're not going to go through all of them, but just some general examples of signs in the book.
All right. Well, let's see. Well, let me talk just about kind of miscellaneous signs, I call them, which are things that we definitely usually don't think of as signs. All right. So car problem. If you see a car, kind of on the side of the road, or it's broken down, or something is going on with the car, that could be a sign to you to reach out and help somebody, or it could be a sign that you yourself are needing to maybe follow up on some either health issues, or you're running low, you're needing to take better care of yourself, or kind of review, your energy. How are you doing? Cars can be symbolic of how we're moving through life. And so a broken down car could also be a message about, needing to do that before you can move on, or to move on to something that you're wanting to get into more. And I want to talk about this next sign, because a lot of times we don't think of noises as signs, but cheering can be a sign. I remember I was working on the glossary, and I was walking, and I was wondering about the book, and I was wondering, when I wrote it, I thought, this book seems really crazy. I think it's one of the most kind of like, I thought, really? Am I really doing this? It seems kind of, a little out there. And I was really wondering whether or not I should pursue it. And I remember this so clearly, just all of a sudden hearing all this cheering going on. And I didn't know where it was coming from. I mean, I'm sure I think there was like I don't know, there was something going on, I guess not too far from me I didn't know about. But it was just this wild cheering. And I thought, you know what, that's my sign. You know, like Spirit's just saying, go, go, yay, you're doing this.
Yeah. Anyway, this is happening. Go for it.
Right. Yeah. So if you hear cheering, it's like, yay, go. We're proud of you.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so what if you see, and that is unusual because most people don't think of that as like a sign, you know, kind of like, wow, you know, cheering is, you know, it's something. So you really have to be aware of everything going on around you.
Right. Well, and that's very mindful, keep in mind, too. And that was the other thing that I noticed when I did my own walkabouts, is you become incredibly mindful of everything. You know, I have smells in the book, too. You know, smelling, you know, you're thinking or you're looking for a sign in smelling garbage. That's a sign. Or smelling flowers. That's a sign. But, yeah, it kind of activates all your senses when you do this and places you right in the moment, which is incredibly relaxing and really changes the brain waves too to this really nice, less stressed kind of open intuitiveness.
Mm. Well, and you know, it's so nice when we get these signs that come in repetition. What does that mean? You know, because sometimes I think those can be a little comforting. Do they have any specific importance, or does it really matter like what the sign is?
Well, yeah, I like the repetition ones too. Those are kind of like, I think, like an exclamation point sometimes too, that says, yeah, pay attention. Yeah, you pay attention. Like, you know, we're talking to you. I think sometimes with numbers, repetition can change signs also. If you see like a 1, and then if you see like an 11 or, you know, even like 11 and 2 2s, I mean, numbers are different in that way because repetition completely can change, not completely, but they definitely have somewhat of a different meaning based on the repetition in that way. In general, I think that they're important. It's really important to pay attention to signs and repetition. Because when you don't pay attention to that, you know, that's when, you know, something's really trying to get a message to us. And when we don't pay attention, it kind of ups the game, you know, in the way that, you know, the next sign we get might be an uncomfortable one. It might be something that if you're not going to pay attention to this, then, you know, the next thing that comes your way might be something that you are forced to pay attention to. Let me go back, so I'll talk about the car I was talking about. Let's say that you see a car on the side of the road, you know, broken down or whatever, and you think, oh, well, that's interesting. I guess this could mean this to me or this. And then let's say you see 3 or 4 of them in the span of a couple days. And it's clear at that point, wait a minute, I keep seeing these broken down cars. That has to be more than a coincidence. That could be a sign that's really saying to you, wait a minute, the path you're on, you need to slow down. Maybe you need a bit of a break. Maybe you need to look at how you're feeling. Maybe you know, because they can represent our physical body to cars and how we're moving forward. So it could be a sign that you're really needing to pay attention to that and not paying attention to it. The next thing that comes your way could be something that, you know, is physically related. You know, you get the flu or you're so, you're not, you know, something else happens in a way that, you know, the next level, we'll say, of whatever it is that it's trying to point out to you.
Yeah, just kind of trying to get you to notice what's happening there. Right. So, and I know you talked about this a little bit earlier. So what if we get signs from our loved ones who have passed that are trying to comfort us? And I know you call those comfort signs. What are some examples of those type of signs we would get?
Well, the most common comfort signs from loved ones usually occur soon after their passing over, or if we are going through something ourselves. And those signs usually involve things. One of the most common for people who have recently passed is a butterfly, because they are symbolic of transformation and change. And, someone going over, it's like they've become that butterfly. Or birds. Those are really common. Loved ones send a lot of birds our way. And primarily, birds are symbolic of heavens to earth. They're in the sky. They have that higher vision. And then they come to the earth. They land here. And one of the reasons that I think they're so common with loved ones is because that's the loved one's spirit also, is kind of ascended into a higher place in the skies, we'll say, or higher. And then it's their spirit coming back to us, coming back and touching in on the earth. Sometimes it depends, it really depends though. I've heard people say that certain birds signify more so than other birds, that's a loved one, which I kind of don't completely agree with that, because some of that has to do with, honestly, where we live too. And, some birds are just more common in some areas. I think really it has more to do with the common sightings of the bird. And a bit of that has to do with intuition too, is, we get a sense of knowing. So, butterfly, birds, coins are another common one. It's funny, a lot of men in spirit leave coins. I haven't come across that many women that leave coins, but a lot of men, grandfathers, fathers, that kind of thing, will leave pennies or quarters, nickels, dimes, whatever, as a way of saying. And it's funny because a lot of people will so quickly know that, oh yeah, that's my father. He always leaves me dimes or nickels or something like that.
And so that's got to be kind of comforting, because you develop that relationship.
Right.
Going, okay, every time I see a dime, especially in unusual places, I've heard of people finding dimes on top of the snow when they go outside, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, right, exactly, where you think that just doesn't happen. I remember one day I found a $10 bill laying right in I was doing a walkabout and I found that, and I thought, who finds, it'd be nice if it was 100, but a $10 bill is pretty nice, Yeah.
Those are the kind of signs we want.
Yeah, right. I thought, someone leaving me $10 bills, then that's great. That's great.
Yeah. That's not a bad thing at all. Well, and I know we just have a few more minutes here, gosh, it's so easy to ask so many questions, because this book was just so amazing. It's such a great resource. I mean, if I see I see bunnies all the time where I live.
Oh,
there's
good.
one, right out my window right now. And so I was looking that up.
Oh,
and
really?
Oh gosh, I like this.
Well, that is unusual during the day, especially, huh? Well, that's a good one. That's a great one. Well, that makes sense with you, with, that kind of soft sweetness, but also fertility. And, bunnies are stronger than they look, too, or stronger than we think they are.
Oh, and I was really surprised and thank you, by the way, but I was really surprised in your book, because you also talk about colors as signs, and a lot of people don't look at it that way. This is kind of something new. So it's like I was, is it like if you see the color, or if you're more gravitating towards the color? Probably if you see it, right?
Well, both, really. They both are meaningful. One of the reasons, one of the reasons I added color too is because color is vibration, and in and of itself, color actually is very pure energy, and it has very strong meaning, certain colors. It's an incredibly strong energy hold, portal, or all colors are, for different vibration. And one of the things that can be very helpful using color is something like a red car has a very different meaning from a white car. Like if you see a line of red cars and you think that's odd, I remember that happened to me. I was waiting at the airport for someone to pick me up, and like a line of like 6 red cars passed me, and I thought, now that's unusual to see that many red cars all in a row. That has a different meaning than if I saw white cars like that, or another color. And that's true of other things though too. Seeing certain, even, outdoors, certain color, well, I won't want to say flowers because flowers also go by the type of flower, but a white, will just generally speaking, something like, we'll say a white tulip or a white rose. Let's talk about rose would have a very different meaning from like a pink rose or a yellow rose. So that's a better way to tune into the meaning and interpret a sign is through its color.
And use it that way. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I had such a great time with your book and had so much fun. Gosh, Sherrie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your book?
Well, you can go to my website, which is www.sherriedillard.com, which is SherrieDillard. And you can also go to my Facebook page, Sherrie Dillard, Twitter, Instagram. And the book is pretty much out in most places, so it hopefully shouldn't be too hard to track down if anybody's interested.
Yeah, I know that they can pick it up at all major retailers, on Amazon, just about any place you can buy a book. This will be on the shelves,
Right.
Well, Sherrie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I so much appreciate it.
Oh, it's always so fun to have you on the show. And again, anytime you have another book come out, please let us know. We love having time with you, and gosh, you're just so gifted and talented. We just love spending this time with you. So
well, thanks so much. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 1-2-3 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
Ben Wexler is a gifted leadership development and strategy consultant for professionals who want to transform their organizations and careers. Through a uniquely personalized set of processes, participants discover their unique knowledge, how to leverage that knowledge and experience, and then put it all together with a global strategy. You're more valuable, your organization is more valuable, and the change is viral. Contact Ben at 630-881-1074. 630-881-1074.
This is Jennifer McGill. My highly anticipated new album, Unbreakable, is now available at jennifermcgill.com. Everything from power ballads to high-energy jam-out-in-your-car songs. I used my highest joys and deepest pains to create empowering songs of love, strength, healing, and restoration so that you can be unbreakable too. Get your copy of Unbreakable today from jennifermcgill.com. Because who doesn't want to be unbreakable?
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited to be introducing our next guest, Melissa Cynova, and she's here today to talk to us about her new book, Kitchen Table Tarot. So welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you, Marianne. Thanks for having me.
Oh, what a joy it is to have you here. And, I'm probably the perfect person for us to have this conversation. I mean, I've had a tarot reading. It's been a long time. I don't know a whole lot about it. I've bought cards here and there that I kind of just play with. So this is actually, I found this really interesting. It was really easy to read and very, very helpful for someone that's starting that whole process.
Great. That's the thing that I'm loving the most is I've had people, I've been getting these emails. I didn't expect that because I've never, been an author before. But folks are sending me emails saying, I've had this deck sitting around for like 5 years, and so far I haven't found a book that's spoken to me, and yours has. Or I have another kind of email that I get is someone who's been reading the cards for 20, 30 years, and they're like, thank you for this fresh approach because I was bored stiff. Because I don't think that people understand that tarot readers keep learning. Most of them. I'm going to say most. I'll generalize that. Most tarot readers keep reading and keep learning. So if there's a new tarot book out, I'm going to get it. And I'm going to see like Courtney Weber had one about tarot reading for yourself. And I can't do that worth a darn. So I got that as soon as I could. And then like Liz Worth is a Toronto reader, and she has a great book about, and I can't remember the something that's stepping outside the little white book. And she has this, I'm kind of pissed that I didn't do this in my book, but she said, like, if you get the 2 of Cups in work, it means this. In love, it means this. And, and she broke it down by situation. So that's another really great book for beginners. So, but getting feedback from readers who've been reading as long or longer than I have that says it gives them, they picked up some things, or it gives them a fresh look at their cards. I love that. That makes my whole day.
Yeah, well, and it's. I think anyone, regardless what practice you have, if it's tarot, if it's energy healing, whatever, we're constantly looking to improve our craft, to improve our technique. There's something we can learn from everybody. So you've been doing this since you were a kid. You were was it 9 or 14 when you started?
I was 14. Yeah. My son started when he was 9, my little guy.
Oh.
Yeah, he's pretty great at it. But I was 14 years old and just gotten out of Catholic school and had started high school.
Oh, that's a really good time to start that.
Yeah. Yeah, just made that transition. And and one of my buddies just handed them to me, and he said, you should do this. And I didn't know what this was, And I had this beat up book by Eden Gray, and I studied it. I had to read it with a dictionary in my other hand because I didn't know what a hierophant was or how to say it. I'm still not 100% sure. And I just kind of figured it out. Yeah. And I used the book a lot, but I found that by studying the images and the cards, I could get deeper, Well,
and you're very intuitive, so you use a lot of your intuition as the cards are being placed down. You have a lot of intuition into the whole meaning of what the cards are telling you.
Yeah, and it's kind of that part is difficult to teach because a lot of folks don't trust that first feeling, right? So I'll lay down a card and I'll get an image of somebody yelling at the person in front of me, and the card is the 7 of Wands. And I'm like, I know this has happened before. Who keeps yelling at you? And their eyes will get big. And I'm like, okay, well, we don't have to talk about it just yet, but it feels like it's someone that you're in a relationship with. And then they'll kind of sit back for a second, and I'll go, okay, we'll get back to that in a minute. And then I can just kind of go around and touch on each card and see what kind of picture they're painting, right? Mm-hmm. And I actually, that happened last weekend. I worked at a picnic here in St. Louis, and her eyes got big, and she sat back, and I said, now listen, doesn't matter who's yelling at you. And I'm trying to like meet her eyes, and she's not looking at me. And I'm like, it doesn't matter who's yelling at you. People aren't allowed to do that. So I need you to say that to me. And she started laughing. I'm like, no one's allowed to yell at you. It doesn't matter who it is. And she goes, no one's allowed to yell at me. And then she started laughing a little. I'm like, okay, now let's talk about it. So my readings I always start without asking any questions, because I've gotten a lot of crappy readings in the past from people who are like, we have a while, right? So I can tell you a story.
Yeah.
So like I go to Chicago, and I wrote about this a little bit in the book, and this woman was a total con artist. And she ends the reading by like saying, if I hire her as my personal psychic advisor, right, for $500 a month, she'll cure me of this curse that's on me, that's following me around like a cloud.
Oh, I've had something like that. Or I do this prayer for you once a week. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such garbage. Or you could buy this $300 candle. I'm like, honey, if I need a candle, I'll go to Target. You're terrible. Right? But in order to kind of dispel that, when I do readings, I don't ask any questions. I don't Google the person. I just throw the cards down. Mm-hmm. And then I do that part. And then I say, if you have any questions, let me know. And usually they don't have any more questions. And that's a way for me to establish that I actually know what the hell I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And my clients, like, it's a new client kind of thing, because the clients who know me are like, I need a reading about work, or I need a reading about whatever. But for my new clients, I really like to establish that trust right away, because there are just so many con artists out there. And I've almost gotten scammed like twice. I walked in for a reading, and I was like, seriously, are we really doing this like Whoopi Goldberg and ghost thing? And it's just, the more mystery that we can strip away, I think the less likely people are to get taken, and I care about my clients. I want to make sure that, nobody's hands are in their pockets. Right.
Well, so. And it's interesting. I think, everyone has had this kind of a bad experience where you're dealing with someone where they're mostly money motivated. Right. And so it's really being able to use your own personal intuition and your gut to see what resonates with you and what sounds totally off. And if they start with, you've got a curse, then you need to leave,
Right. Or I can help you find love. No, you can't. Ethany Dawn she's a friend, and she just talked about this in one of her posts. And she's like, if they promise to find you love, no. They say you have a curse on them. No. And this is all stuff that readers my age, I think, are really stressing, because I had a client who called me, and she goes, I just spent $2,000 trying to find a boyfriend. And I'm like, are you high? Just call me first. I mean, if I'm not your cup of tea, because except for on your show, generally, I swear a lot, and people don't dig that. And I give out really hard homework. I make people actually look at themselves, and they don't like that sometimes. So I am not everyone's cup of tea. I will refer you. I know at least 20 tarot readers who have excellent reputations, who are both cheaper and more expensive than me. I will refer you to someone else who's reputable and honest. Just ask, just ask.
I think having those recommendations is really important, so you don't get swept up with a crazy gypsy or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that too, any ethical tarot reader will give you a referral. So that's a good litmus test to know if a person is like, because I'm motivated by money, because I have bills to pay, and but it's not my only motivation. And if it were, I would probably be doing it full time already and have a much broader client base. But I just started doing it professionally like 4 years ago, and I got offers to do a TV show. But they wanted my kids on it too. And I got offers, you know what I mean? I got offers from people who seemed kind of shady, and I'm like, I don't want that much money for that. You don't get a picture of my child. You don't get to, you know what I mean? You don't get to exploit what I do. And financially, it was really stupid. It was a really stupid thing to do. Yeah. But I've been able to honestly build up my tarot business with integrity, and that matters a lot to me, right?
Yeah.
So Yeah,
I think it's important. And, and that's, I agree with you. I mean, when we get like energy healers or people that work with energy, a lot of times they feel like, ooh, I shouldn't get paid. And there's nothing wrong with getting paid.
No.
It just can't be your sole motivation for doing what you're doing, I think, to some extent. Because, we want to be able to provide a service, help people, and get paid a good, reasonable rate for what we do.
And so. I compare mine to, I know a lot of Reiki practitioners and things like that. And the usual going rate hourly is about $125 an hour for a really great hairstyle, for a massage, for a Reiki treatment, for whatever, if you've been doing it as long as I have. Mm-hmm. And, but I always have a $30 email reading. I will never change that because I've been broke and have needed a reading before. But I still have people call and say, you're too expensive. I'm like, email reading, that's your best bet. You're too expensive. I'm like, then I'm not for you. Yeah. Because I can't change my rates every time somebody has a hard time, or I'm not going to be able to take care of my family. AT&T does not take tarot readings in exchange for a reading. You know what I mean? They're
not yet.
Right, exactly. Well, maybe they will if they hear this, right? Yeah. But I have obligations, and if I devalue my services, I mean, you get what you pay for. And I'm a really good tarot reader, so I charge a good sum of money because I've been doing this for almost 30 years. And I'm great at it. And I think that if I were to say, cut my rates just so I could get more clients, I would be overworked. I would be tired. I would be, you know what I mean? The volume of my readings would go up exponentially, and I wouldn't be able to give the quality readings that I'm able to do. Yeah. So you get what you pay for, What you get when you pay me is an hour of my undivided attention. I am with you. I am present for you. And that's worth $125 an hour, So I have very strong feelings about this. We shouldn't pay for their gifts. They are gifts. So is singing, and the Indigo Girls get paid beautifully for singing.
Yeah.
So
and so that kind of touches on my next question I have for you. We talk about. When we do tarot card reading, there are some things that you should do when you first start, and there are some things that you probably should not do. So what would be some advice you would give to someone who's just starting out, besides, going and purchasing your book?
That's an excellent way to start. Thank you for saying that. I think that you should maybe not call yourself an expert right away. I've seen a lot of, and I'll say kids because I'm 42. So if you're younger than 35, I'll generally call you a kid. Sorry, but but I've seen younger readers who are in their 20s saying I'm an expert reader, and I'm like, are you really, pumpkin? That's adorable. I think that experience can lead to expertise. That's kind of where the word comes from. I think you can be a very good reader, and I have friends who are in their 20s and 30s who are excellent readers. But they don't claim to be the expert end-all be-all of their profession. And I think that earning that is kind of important. I think also don't, if you read books that are you can't buy your first tarot deck, that's not true. You can. Or you have to shuffle into your left hand 3 times under the full moon or whatever. You don't have to shuffle any particular way if you don't want to. There's a lot of mythos attached to tarot readings, and it's just that. I think people should be as comfortable with their cards as they can be. And I think that if you want to wrap your deck in silk and put it on your altar, that's awesome. If you want to put it in a makeup bag and stack it on your bookshelf, that's what I do, and it works just fine,
It's whatever way you choose to have your deck. Now, I know in your book you talk about self-care. What are some of the ways that we should be doing self-care?
Well, and a lot of this I found out by doing it wrong. If you're exhausted, you can't give a great reading. You can give a good reading, but it won't be great. If you're drunk, you can give a good reading, but it won't be great. Having yourself in good physical condition and emotional condition and spiritual condition can only help you do a better reading, because in this reading, there are 2 tools. There's you and your deck. And if you don't take good care of your tools, you're not going to do good work with them.
Yeah.
So I've given readings while stoned in the back of a car on the way to a concert. It was accurate, it wasn't very good. And it didn't serve my client well because I dropped a bunch of emotional stuff on them that I probably had no reason talking about to them at that time.
Yeah.
But it was accurate, right? So I think that the better condition you're in and the better condition your cards are in, the better your readings will be. And it makes you more thoughtful. So I've started, after, bajillion years of doing this, introducing ritual to my readings, like in the last 3 years. So I find that if I meditate a little bit beforehand, which I hate doing because I have monkey brain, it bores me to tears. But if I sit quietly for 5 minutes and just kind of hang out and play with my cards, I do a better reading. If I have a candle or some incense and I feel calm, I do a better reading.
Yeah.
If it's not too late at night, I do a better you know what I mean? So I give myself work hours now instead of staying up till 2 a.m. to read for somebody in Malaysia. I make sure that I've eaten and that I'm not hangry.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You do all those things to take care of yourself to make sure that you are in the best place. So, so then you're being able to give the best information and just keeping it all clear,
Right. And that's not to say, if I'm with friends and nobody's paying me, right, to do a reading, I will give a reading when I've been drinking with my friends because it's funny. And because usually the people that I'm reading for have gotten readings for me before sober. So I'm I will tell them, P.S., I've had 5 of these. And and there's your heads up. I would never do that for a paid client ever. But I have friends who would, and they're fine with it. So your personal ethics evolve over time.
Now, do cards hold energy of the people you've been reading? And if so, is there a special way you get rid of that energy?
They do. And some people don't believe that, which is absolutely fine. But the way that I explain it to folks is have you ever walked in a room when people were fighting and it is stuffy and stale and charged?
Yeah.
So if I do readings for, I was at the picnic for 5 or 6 hours doing readings, every single person had something emotional going on, or they wouldn't have gotten a reading. Yeah. And every single person leaves a little bit of their stuff on my cards. So I will, when I got home after the picnic, I put them all in order, in number order. First to make sure I didn't lose any, because I've been known to drop some before in the past. And also it kind of resets the energy of the deck. And then I kind of wrapped on them with my knuckles. And then I put them on my altar and I lit some incense and I let them just sit there and be still. And I haven't touched them. It'll be a week. And that's an arbitrary number. I'm not going to touch these for a week. They need a break. And I had 3 decks that I was using. So those 3 decks are kind of on the bench until I feel like it's time to pick them up again. Between readings, I put crystals on them because I think that helps. And that's the thing is if you believe it'll help, it'll help.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer. And if you decide that something is so, it is so. Within reason. I can't decide that I'm a billionaire. Well, maybe I can. We'll talk about that later. But if I decide that if I take this pretty piece of labradorite and put it on my deck, that'll help knock off that negative energy, it works. It's like Reiki. If you believe that it's a thing, it's a thing. And so that helps. And in the book, I talk about different ways you can use it with the elements, like putting it under the moon for some water energy or under the sun. Different ways, whatever your practice is, whatever feels comfortable to you.
Yeah, I've heard of people doing that also for if they have crystals or whatever to clean and clear them. So it makes perfect sense that you would do the same thing for your cards, because as you're cleaning that energy. Now, is there responsibility and etiquette when you're reading cards for somebody? I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, kind of just you want to make sure that you're clear and you're bringing your best game to the table.
Right.
So what if you get information that's that you're not quite sure, maybe you're getting information it's your mom passed.
Right.
And you're not sure if because you don't know this person, you're not sure if that's the case, if the mom is passing, what's going on.
I had a reading in college back in the day when I was not bright. And I said, I'm sorry about your grandma. And she said, what do you mean? I'm like, your grandmother just died. And her phone rang, literally. And it was her mother telling her that her grandmother died.
Oh,
now,
wow. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I lost a friend for a couple months because I scared the shit out of her. I scared myself. I put my cards down for a while because I'd never experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
Ever. And I learned from that sometimes you just need to shut up because it's not my place, usually, to look at death. I've been told pretty strongly by the universe not to do that. Now, I did last weekend because this woman was terminally ill and she wanted to know how much time she had. And I kind of checked in to make sure it was okay, and then I told her. And she was like, thanks, I really appreciate it, because I got stuff to do, right?
Yeah.
But there are times, if I see death, I don't generally talk about it. I tell people that you need to spend more time with your family. Mm-hmm. You know, because here's the fun part. Sometimes
so if you do a reading for me, you ever tell me I need to spend more time with my family, I know what's going on.
Well, and sometimes you just need to spend more time with your family. So it could be out there, really. But like I'll kind of push them in that direction, but it's not my place to scare people. That's scary.
Yeah.
You know?
They might not be ready to hear that, you know.
And that's something that I can pick up in the reading generally. Like the lady, I mean, she's sitting across from me. She looks perfectly fine. She has stage 4 cancer. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. But she was just like, yeah, I get up. I can be out for like an hour and then I'm done for the day. I had no idea, but I got this and I was like, you want to talk about it? And she goes, actually, yeah, can you tell me? And that was all that we said about it. Mm-hmm. I kind of figured out what was going on and she figured out that I figured out what was going on. And then we just talked about it. I'm like, you got about like 8 months? She's like, great. That's about what the doctor said. And it was a really calm conversation. But if someone sat in front of me and I see that someone near them is going to pass away, first of all, if they didn't sit down to ask that, I'm not going to spring it on them. If they did ask, if they say my mom's really sick, what do you see? I can't really look at that ethically. I don't think I can. Mm-hmm. I can say, is she getting the care she needs? I can see you're taking really good care of her. I encourage you to spend time with her if she's this ill, but I don't do that. And I know people who do. So if they want a reading like that where they can predict death time, I'll refer them out. But if I see that it needs to be a conversation I need to have, I'll have it. But it doesn't happen that often because not very often is that the goal of a tarot reading.
Yeah.
You know, people say like, my mom's really sick, and it won't be when will she die. It'll be, do I need to keep her at home, or does she need to move into a nursing home, or is it time for hospice care? Mm-hmm. Or is there other help I'm not looking at? You know, it's the practical day-to-day stuff, you know?
Yeah. Well, a lot of times people just want guidance on like, what am I supposed to do next? Like, how am I supposed to help them? You know, what can I do to make them as comfortable as possible if it's a known situation? Yeah. So that way they could be there and be supportive. Now I know with the cards, some of them bring, you know, really big life lessons. Mm-hmm. When someone pulls one of those and they're kind of trying to decide what they're going to say, what is something that you have maybe as a fallback, or is it, you know, you have this card and, well, I know we've been hammering death, but maybe something else like transition. You're going to have a transition in your job or something.
Well, and the card death doesn't necessarily mean a physical death, although it can, but usually it means a gigantic transition, right? So I gave her a reading a few weeks ago, and I do the 6-card spread, and the 3 in the back were the Tower, Death, and I think the Hanged Man. And I was like, son of a... And I said, you've had a hell of a year. And they went, oh my God, how did you know? Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, here are the things that I see. And I kind of went into each card and what it meant for that person. And then the next 2 cards were like, I mean, it was an all major arcana reading, which doesn't happen. There's 78 cards in the deck. It doesn't happen often. And it happened. And it was like the Lovers and the 2 of Cups. I'm like, but you're about to get married. Everything's awesome, you know? And she's like, yeah, but because the past had been so heavy, it was dragging into the present. And I said, okay, well, let's look at the future card, the one that was in front, which is I call the pivot card, because it's like, if you keep, you know, on this path, this is the most likely outcome. Yeah. So if you want to change it, do it now, right? And it was the World. And I'm like, you can't really control a whole lot except for what is your life. Mm-hmm. You can't control other people. You can't fix people you didn't break. You can't mastermind your entire family's craziness. What you can do is concentrate on your happiness with this person right here, because she loves you, you love her, all is well. And then you just let the rest of it happen, and the world will keep spinning, and everything will be okay. And she's like, oh, well, that makes me feel better. And I'm like, okay, good. Because she'd had such a difficult year, and her partner were struggling so much. And I said, everything that's ahead of you is yours. You don't have to focus on the rest of the stuff. It's just you and her. That's it. She's like, high five, right?
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes people are expecting to hear just all negative information when there's a lot of positive that happens with, like how you're saying they get the death card doesn't mean like, their cat's going to die. It means that maybe they're going through a transition, Right.
And I think that, because that sells, movie tickets, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier to get people into your booth or your table or whatever if you scare the hell out of them. Then I've literally have readings where I've taken the person's money and I laid down the cards and I've given them their money back and said, you don't need a reading, you're fine. And they're like, yeah, but I wanted one. And they agree with me. They're like, everything's great. My job's great. My partner's great. I'm super happy at work. Everything's cool. I'm like, why did you sit down? Curious. I'm like, well, you don't need me. Yeah. Is there anything specific you want to talk about? Nah. I'm like, well, here's your money. What are you doing? It's like going to the dentist like a week after you went to the dentist. You don't need to. So.
Well, so when you do readings, because I know you offer a lot of different ways that people can connect with you. Let's say you're doing a phone reading with somebody and they can't physically touch the cards. Does it still have their energy?
I think so, because and I found out I could do phone readings on accident because my friend was in Dallas and she's like, give me a reading, and she's all freaking out. And I was like, my arms aren't that long. I can't. And she said, just do it on the phone. So we started doing it on the phone, and then she had to go, and I finished it online. Mm-hmm. So, which is so weird. But I was like, just tell me when to stop shuffling. And she did. And I said, now I'm cutting them in 3 piles. Tell me which one to pick. And she said 3. And I still do that to this day. Mm-hmm. So she tells me when I'm done shuffling. She picked the pile I'm reading from. And then I emailed her the rest of the reading, and I was like, by the way, are you wearing a gray hoodie and playing with your feet? And she was like, how the hell did you know that? So apparently, that's how I found out I could do email and phone readings.
Yeah, it seems like your friends have really opened the whole tarot world open for you, because as a friend that gave you your first deck, you've got another friend that's like, hey, just do these readings for me now, and so you can do distant readings. So yeah.
And the blog started because my friend Suzanne in Canada wanted lessons, and we couldn't afford the phone bill. So I just started a WordPress blog for her, and then a bunch of other people found it. And I was like, oh, crap. Okay, I should probably start a business or something. So you're like, I'm getting
followers. I gotta change this up.
Yeah, exactly. And I started a Twitter thing to learn from other tarot readers, because like Teresa Reed I found on Twitter, and Beth Maiden from Little Red Tarot I found on Twitter. And then I started getting followers, and I was like, oh, I think I might have something to say. And it just evolved because of my friends.
Yeah.
And and I'm nothing without my tribe, that's for sure.
Well, Melissa, my goodness, we could talk all day. This has been really fun. I highly suggest everyone go and pick up your book, Kitchen Table Tarot. And, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having me. This has been really fun.
And where can our listeners connect with you?
If you look up Little Fox Tarot, you will find me. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.
You're on everything.
I'm on everything. Well, I'm not on Tumblr. I was on it for like 5 minutes, and I found a friend, and I only went on there to find my friend Potter. And now I'm done. So, because I think I'm a little too old for Tumblr. It's not for me.
Yeah, I get that. Right. Well, thank you so much. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in today. And remember, make every moment count.
moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.